America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Fall has come to the district, and I am so glad. Although it was one of the most disturbing weekends across the United States that I've ever experienced. I mean, 9/11 is one of a kind horror, and I am just not old enough to remember 1968, 1969, 1967. So I'm not old enough to remember the last spasms. I covered LA in the middle of LA. I was driving around with KCET doing television every night during the riots of LA in 1992, but that was just LA. And I look at the country and say to myself, what is going on? I used to write columns saying people say we're polarized. This is nothing like 1968. And all of a sudden it's 1968. And I'll talk more about that. I want to begin the show, though. I mean, we had cold-blooded murder in Portland yesterday. Cold-blooded murder. Guy executed a Trump supporter. I don't know who the killer was. We have the Kenosha killings. I don't know anything about that kid. I'm not going to comment on specific cases because I don't know. I know what I don't know as a lawyer. A little bit of video doesn't tell you the story. A little bit of video can't tell you the story. But I know what happened in D.C. yesterday and the night before and the night before that. After a very successful GOP convention, the mob, intimidating, threatening, assaulting, battery. It's crazy, just crazy. And I have a story here, which I'll read you about New York in a second. And it tells me that the impacts of this are going to last a long time. You've got to vote for law and order, however you interpret that. You've got to vote for law and order in November. And you could start voting in a few weeks. Start voting for law and order. I think that means Trump definitely over Biden, but it also means a Republican Senate. It means your state legislator, but your mayors have got to be serious about police. Your mayors have got to be serious about police because they and the city council run police. Or if you're in an unincorporated area, the county supervisors and the sheriff run police. And you've just got to pay attention and put serious people in, or you're going to have this. I mean, D.C. is a mess. I spoke on Saturday with a longtime friend. He's in Florida, sheltering in place in Florida. Older and underlying health condition, loves D.C., has spent his life making D.C. great again. Spent a decade on the Pennsylvania Avenue Redevelopment Corporation. And Dick, if you're listening, walk faster. And we were both just disheartened. I lived here in the 80s, and I came back in 2016, and the city had a renaissance. The U Street corridor, the Pennsylvania Avenue, I mean, it's the greatest city in the world. And all of a sudden, mobs are running around it and destroying businesses. And I'll say, the poor entrepreneur, the coffee shop owner, the person trying to rent an apartment, they're screwed by these mobs. And these mobs are not D.C. people. They're not. So I will come back to that in a second. I have to begin, though, with what's on my heart, which is a thank you. I have partnered with, the show has been sponsored for a decade, intermittently, by Food for the Poor. And we always just raise money for them. This audience always writes a check for 25 or 50 bucks or $100. Once in a while, someone will come along with $500 or $1,000. And over the years, I've probably done 15 appeals for them. Haiti, Guatemala, after the volcano in Nicaragua. Maybe the volcano was in Guatemala. Whenever something bad happens, Food for the Poor steps up and gets rice and beans where they need to go because they're very, very good. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I consider them the very best international relief organization. They began as a Catholic shop. They became non-denominational. They're very Christian. They operate through partner agencies. Angela Loma is my friend. I just know them. So I can put a lot of heart into the ask, and we give to them ourselves. And our Food for the Poor campaign ended on Friday. But I asked them to leave the banner up because some of you will be astonished by what you hear, and maybe, we hope to raise, $250,000. We raised $780,000, 760,000, excuse me. And it is 300 to 400% higher than we've ever done before. In the middle of COVID, in the middle of violent protests, not one but two political conventions, a powerful hurricane. I mean, people don't have jobs. And this audience in the Salem Radio Network talk shows raised a stunning network-wide total of $759,000. That's enough to feed 20,000 children in the Caribbean and Latin America. 20,000 kids for 6 months. Now, if you think about getting 20,000 kids, little children, into a stadium somewhere and feeding them once, that's quite a remarkable thing. Feeding them 2 times a day for 6 months, that's just astonishing. Thank you. If you're inspired by that, I had them leave the banner up at hughhewitt.com. I also put a thank you up there. Or you can also call 855-359-4673 for one more day today. 855-359-HOPE to add your help. And if you're a billionaire and you're sitting out there and you say, that's amazing, let me tell you, they are the best. You want to, don't reinvent the wheel. Whenever I see a new billionaire starting a new charity, I think to myself, why don't you just give the money to Food for the Poor or Salvation Army or Prison Fellowship? We've got, those are the 3 that I work with, and Semper, Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund. And I say to myself, Hillsdale College, you got 5 fingers. All right, one is for your church. I mean, you got to give to your church. One is for a parachurch organization. One is for a school, one of the schools that educated you, giving back to someone who gave it. Another is for a different school that helped you, that helps the world. That's Hillsdale for me. And then number 5 is one military charity. And there are some fine ones out there, Fisher House and Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, because the military takes care of us. That's why I always tell you to buy honorboundcoffee.com, because then you don't even have to think about it. You're donating to military families by honorboundcoffee.com when you drink Honorbound Coffee. But those are what 5 fingers that remind you. Have you given to your church, to a parachurch organization, maybe your high school, maybe your grade school, maybe your nursery school, maybe your college, maybe your grad school? And have you given to one other educational institution with which you have no affiliation that does remarkable work? And then finally, a military charity. And I like Semper Fi Fund. But there are other great ones. I'm not saying exclusively there. But for me to endorse something, they have to be legit and efficient. A lot of groups do good work, and they're not very efficient. And, the parable of the talents, you've got to, if I give you 10, you got to come back with 20. You've got to really show a return on investment. Young Life does a good job, too. I mean, there are all sorts of parachurch organizations, International Ministry of Justice, Operation Rescue, Recon. There's all sorts of great things out there, but Food for the Poor simply does one thing well, which is feed and house the poorest of the poor in Central America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And you folks are amazing. Thank you. I'll do New York next. Let me check the markets, because it's an extraordinary. The Fed basically said, hose the world down with money. The Dow went up 161 on Friday. NASDAQ went up 70. S&P went up 23. The price of gold this morning is $19.70. I bought gold last week for more than that. I'm glad I did. I don't worry about $20 swings. Gold is a reserve fund to make sure you don't get wiped out by a tsunami. And that's why Birch Gold exists. Go to hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, to 474747. When you text HUGH to 474747, or you go to Hugh Gold, they'll send you an info kit. This isn't complicated. You just roll over part of your IRA or your 401k, not all of it, 25% max, maybe 10% to start, into physical gold and silver. And Birch Gold does that. Or you buy some gold from them directly, which is what I do, and put it in the safety deposit box. Whatever you do, do it with Birch Gold. We're going to have another wild day on the markets, I think, today, because the Fed just said, open up the money spigots. We want an average of 2% inflation. That means inflation. Stay tuned, America.